She has done so much for our soldiers, and we're so proud. Thanks for joining us today for the panel. Walt Pyatt, Colonel Promotable, the Infantry Commandant, who was a co-lead on this effort for us. And Walt's got great operational experience, multiple deployments, Afghanistan and Iraq, and thanks for joining us, Walt. You can see the jointness of the panel as we are working with the Marines on the squad, and they have, kind of interestingly, separately, without talking at first, we both realized we've got to work the squad from the bottom up, and then the right way we started working together as soon as we realized we were both working this. So Lieutenant Colonel Chris Woodburn is the Marine Corps lead, and he's joining us today from the Capabilities Development Directorate for the Marine Corps down at Quantico. Thanks for being here, and he's been a great partner in all this. Dr. James Blake joins us, PEO STRI, and Dr. Blake has, again, been a great champion and done so much for our soldiers. You know, when you look at simulations, training, and all those key areas that he touches. Thanks, sir, for joining us. Appreciate it. My battle buddy, Command Sergeant Major Chris Hardy, next to him. Again, talk about very fortunate. I tell everybody we stole him from the Ranger Regiment, but 11 deployments, Afghanistan and Iraq. And Sergeant Major Hardy will brief the human dimension as we get into the human dimension, as is appropriate, because there's only a couple folks up on the panel who've been squad leaders. He's one of them. Next is Command Sergeant Major Steve McLaughlin, Infantry Command Sergeant Major, another man with incredible operational experience, and we're very fortunate to have him here. Sergeant Major, thanks for joining us. And finally, on the end, last but not least, Don Sando, an amazing individual, Colonel retired, and SES that does our capabilities, developments, integration directorate. He runs that directorate, and he is a co-chair on the squad for us. So thanks to the panel members for being here. So let me get into squad foundation of the decisive force. You had General Kernan touched on some background. We really started, just to give a brief background, we really started looking at the tactical small unit based on what's happened over the last 10 years. And we said, now wait a minute, where is the fight too fair? Where do we not have overwhelming ability to overmatch our enemies? Where is it, that the enemy is looking at where they have the fairest fight and their best opportunity? And when you look at that, it's at the lowest level that causes the biggest challenges. Now, we've had tremendous junior leaders that have carried the day for us. But as we look at this today, have we provided them all the tools, all the training, all the background, what they need, the material items, as well as the human dimension of the training and leader development, et cetera? Have we provided them what they need to be successful and to get to where we, again, where it's not a fair fight? And we spend a lot of time in a tactical small unit talking, what is the tactical small unit? What level? Do we start company, platoon? Do you go squad? As General Kernan mentioned, General Dempsey solved it for us about 6-7 months ago and said, let's start at the very pointiest end of the spear. Let's look at where the need is the greatest, and let's turn the system on its end and look bottom up. And what you'll see here, what we're going to do, in the end I'll show you a new method to look at this, where in the past, quite honestly, we've done great things for the soldier. And as all remember, soldier as a system has gotten us great protection, lethality, and capabilities for individual soldiers. But in this case, we're keeping soldier as a system, of course. That's critical for the individual soldier. But we're looking at what is the measure of effectiveness of that formation of the squad, and not just material additions. In fact, that is the big change in what's unique. It's material, it's leader development, and it's training, all on an equal footing, and looking at what provides that advantage that we need at the small unit level. And what's been interesting in this, a lot of folks came in thinking it would be a lot of items to give the squad. And there are some, of course, but much more than that, what we found was it's really not items to give the squad, but it's a human dimension, leader development, training, simulations, I mentioned earlier, for the small unit, and many other factors that we'll touch on here in the rest of the briefing that will lead to overmatch, and has really been the focus as we go out and share this with the divisions, with the units. So the human dimension has become the most important, not surprising. It's always been incredibly important, but even more so today. So let me show you a quick video, and then I'll cover just a few of the slides as background. Can you please play the video?
Germans are in the trenches with access to the entire battery and with machine gun cover in the rear. We'll establish a base of fire and move under it hard and fast with 2 squads of 3.
How many do you think we're facing?
No idea.
I can't see nothing.
This is the big danger area right now.
Okay.
Because if we're here and they start opening up on us,
You're in between.
but if we clear down, you guys could use my weapon squad as an indicator for where they are, and that's your right limit of fire, man. Shoot anything up the mountain.
So, hey.
Okay, that should fire up some. I see some of my old buddies in here. They may want to sign up to be a squad leader again, you know. And you know, some obvious items in the video that you see, and you look. You know, 70 years later, we still don't have dismounts in the network. Well, there's some tough challenges, and we'll talk about some of those tough challenges. Some things there are fairly quick fixes. Other things, you know, we've been trying to fix it for years, and it's going to take a little while. But this effort provides a focus. Not only a focus, you know, again, within the structure of the Army, looking at from the bottom up, but also industry, also research, labs, and a focus of exactly what we need to get at this overmatch. So when you look at why the squad, you know, a lot of you I know were in the Eisenhower luncheon. You heard General Odierno talk about the environment, how it's changed, and kind of a theme that you've heard. It is complex. Who is the enemy? And this enemy, when you look at every level, you could really argue just about every level, if you put our formations, a company against a company, it's not going to be a fair contest. We're going to defeat anybody. Battalion against battalion, brigade against brigade, even platoon against platoon, sometimes maybe not if the conditions that don't allow the advantages. But certainly at the squad is where it is too fair a fight. And the enemy strategy, of course, is to bleed us by 1,000 cuts. And they know that they can have a fair fight against that squad, hide in among the populace, who is the enemy, and cause these issues. So, again, we're working towards overmatch. It's also, I mean, obviously, the squad's where the most casualties are. And when you look at, you know, there's all kinds of data, but it's where the casualties are the greatest. It's also the first element to come into contact. And nowhere in this are we saying that the squad is now its own formation out there. Of course not. But another reason to start at the squad and fix it where the need is the greatest, because great squads equal great platoons equal great companies, and so forth. So obviously, there are times a squad will be out on its own, and they are now. But normally they would be part of a platoon. But great squads equal great platoons. I think another key point as we look at this method, we talked about material. We talked about leader development and training. You know, we have lots of measures of performance for individual items, systems, but we don't have measures of effectiveness against that formation. And that's where we're really putting an emphasis. What are the measures of effectiveness that show the improvement? So we can say we already know from early testing, getting the squad in the network with early variants, the old Land Warrior, now it's Net Warrior, named after Medal of Honor winner Bobnet, but we know 30% greater effect on that formation from the old variant. So we're looking, some cases we know, some cases we don't, but that's, you know, where you can have a prioritized solution across those domains that I mentioned, and that'll help us get to that level at the squad. Okay, next slide. Really want to point out, again, The reality is squads have always been important, but certainly they are strategic in their, what they do and the effect they can have. Just like the strategic corporal, he's strategic because he's part of that strategic squad where, the reach back and with the way the world has adjusted, they are even more important. And there's a term up there that's really important as we're looking at this, digital comfort. And that's been very interesting. The soldiers come in the Army today with a digital comfort. They're digital natives. And we actually take them out of their comfort zone when we take them. We take their cell phones away and we put them out there. And they get a comfort from being connected digitally that old guys like me got from being shoulder to shoulder with the person next to them. So if they can text, if they can communicate, they can spread apart and do more. The digital comfort aspect has been huge in this as we're looking at that squad. And then the other term up there on the chart I want to highlight, mission command. We say that it's clearly the way to go. It's fantastic. We don't have command and control anymore in the doctrine. It's mission command. Well, how do you get to mission command? That is, as you've heard the senior leadership talking, that's through trust. How do you get through trust? Of course, that's through empowerment, but you're just not going to empower somebody if you don't know them well. You've got to give them their left and right limit, and you've got to see them over and over again in an immersive environment where they're facing the same challenges they'll face. Some of that can be done in a live fire, of course, and still critical. Some of it has to be done in small unit simulation, where they can be immersed in an environment and have the complexities that exist today in the contemporary operating environment. The other aspect is, I'll talk a little bit. In fact, you go to the next slide. We take a look at, the squad can't be dominant everywhere. You have to be realistic. You're not going to be dominant in open terrain against armored forces. That doesn't make sense. But dominant at a given time and place. And as we've seen, that's mostly in cities, tough terrain where the squad is required. And then the second bullet there talks to a really important point of establishing favorable conditions while retaining the squad's ability to react. In other words, more proactive, less reactive. Right now, when we go to do a precision mission, we're in pretty good shape. We get there, but we're out on a patrol, and we're moving not to a precision-type mission. 75-80% of the time, we are reacting to the enemy. And as it showed in the video, we can do better than that. We can do better than that. I remember talking to Sergeant Junta before he was awarded the Medal of Honor. I was over in U.S. Army Europe last year. And, he should have never been put, he was incredibly brave in what he did in that situation. But he should have never been put in that situation. We should have been able to tell him there were folks that were going to ambush that squad right over the horizon. And so more proactive, less reactive. Now, you'll never get to 100%, and nobody's trying to attain that. But wouldn't it be better if only 30% of the time we were reactive instead of 80% of the time? Clearly, that's absolutely key. So essential to timely, the other part of mission command is you can't be as fast as this enemy unless you have empowerment, and you can't get that unless you have mission command and that trust with the lower echelons. Essential to timely action. You see immersive training is listed up there, and I'll let Dr. Blake talk about that, but it's absolutely critical. We have not had in the dismounted force the immersive trainers. Some part of it's due to physics. Some of it a little bit tough to get. Some of it's just due to the ability to tie it in. Originally, there was supposed to be, like with the close combat tactical trainer, a dismounted portion of it, but never materialized. We have that now coming where you can immerse in an environment and push the squad over and over again, ramp it up for someone who's doing very well, and bring the scenario complexities down for someone who's struggling a little bit. That immersive environment that's so critical. Next slide, please. You look in the middle are the gaps. Again, extensive capabilities-based assessment is critical in this. You can't just guess at what the gaps are. You look back at history. You look at the issues of what the squad's made. And some of these, as I mentioned, are very tough problems. They're in the blue there. Network, mobility, power and energy, the human dimension, lethality, and force protection. And those are bridges you see there to some of the potential solutions. It's not all-inclusive, but just some of the potential solutions. And when you look at, all of this, you have to be able to do it operating in a JIM environment, joint, interagency, intergovernmental, and multinational environment. We're not going to do it alone. So that's got to be a key part of as you're looking at filling those gaps. And where there's tough gaps like power and energy, the average platoon on a 72-hour mission carries about 415 pounds of batteries, 11 different types. You could, as General Dempsey has quoted, you could follow the platoon by the trail of batteries. We've got to do better than that. We've got to come up with systems and ways to do better than that. It's not going to be solved right away, but there are interim solutions. For example, the robot you see down in the lower left corner of the slide. Not a final solution, but what if you had, and this exists today, and again, it's being experimented with, but you have a robot that's about the third the size of a golf cart. You can put track on it, and it can go about 80% of the places a squad can. It's not going to go everywhere. It's not for every mission. But what if you could load, let's say, a battery charger on there? You could put rucks on that get after the mobility and load. By the way, these things, there's different variants, but they can follow automatically who you designate in the squad, and you can see back in the TOC where they're at. And what about if you put ISR platforms in there so the squad, at least when they have that mobility with that robot with them, they could see a remote viewing terminal. And again, it gets to the pointy end of the spear. Folks higher know it, but we've got to get it to the folks that will take the action. Not a final solution, but clearly a potential interim solution. The other part of this that, precision fires, getting squad leaders access to precision fires, you may not be able to use them. Rules of engagement may prevent. You may want to filter those precision fires. But right now, the way we have it organized, it's not easy to get. And we can read after action report of squads waiting and having to verify with higher that, yes, they do have the enemy coming in the wire, and I do need the precision fires, 20 minutes is about best case. We say give them the capability they need, and you can filter it if you have to. Better to have it and filter it than not have it when you need it, and that's the way we're organized right now. I'm going to be followed by Sergeant Major Hardy. He's going to talk the human dimension. Next slide, please.
Is this thing working? Okay. As we've got into this and started digging into it, and then had going around and conducting briefings and had more people coming to the table with the squad foundation of the decisive force. The human dimension has been the area that's drawn the most interest because as you look at it, when you look up on the slide up there, it's got the 21st century soldier competencies. Which is the cognitive, the physical, the social cultural, and the moral ethical. And those are outlined in the Army Learning Concept 2015. And what we're doing is trying to look at how to determine the human capacity and limits within those competencies. And when you look at the squad, you've seen the slide up there where it had the squad from World War II to the squad today. And no, the squad has not changed that much over time. But what we expected the squad to do today has changed significantly over time. If you look at all the responsibility and the situation that the squad leaders and then the platoons and the squads and everything are put in today, it's pretty tremendous because there's a lot of responsibility that we heap upon their shoulders when they're out there alone and unafraid, from a larger element. So as you look at the clouds that go around on the slide up there, and I'm not going to hit each and every one of them, but as you look at those, we got to dig back into our training and leader development on how we get at each of these. Training cannot be you can't no longer be one dimensional. We have to get the squad leader. He can't just be focused on a doorknob, enter a building, clear a room, knock out a bunker, enter a clear trench line. He got to rise up out of that, and he's got to be able to do that. And he's also got to be able to be the diplomat. He's got to be able to conduct key leader engagements when he's dealing with the local populace, the village elders, and all that stuff. When we're putting him in these situations in a complex environment. You see, we got to teach him how to build a cohesive team. Historically, you look at when you receive attachments. In the past, it's been a platoon sergeant that's been the one that's had to, receive the attachments and employ those with the mission that the platoon has. But now, if you look at what the missions that we're giving squad leaders, they're getting attachments. They're getting enablers that are attached to their formations, and they're the ones that's employing those assets. When we talked about seeing the slide, and you kind of get that out of that they're linked. Okay, they're in a network. We want to create that digital comfort. We want to enable them. Okay, but we don't want to. We want to ensure that they're network enabled, not network dependent. Okay, that's the key to this. This is less of a material. When you look at the human dimension and the training and leader development, this is less a material solution than it is getting into the training and educating. And as General Brown said earlier, we looked at it. Training is for the known, and education we want to educate our leaders for the unknown. when you go over to the other side, we talk about, you look at the cloud that says advanced situational awareness. We talk about every soldier as a sensor, but we really don't train every soldier as a sensor. And one of the things that's come about, we have the ASAT training, which in the Marine Corps, it's the Combat Hunter Program. And, what it does is, if you go to backup slide number 33.
Actually, I think it's 21.
Okay, I got...
Go to 21. I think they changed you.
No, 30.
21?
No, what is that? Yeah, it's right here. I think it's 33. We got. What is that one?
That one's 38. Is that 30? Yeah, he's at 38.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. It's earlier. Keep going. There you go.
What slide is that?
Mystery number. We'll take it.
Okay, and when you look at this slide right here, really what this is, it's a study of human behavior, identifying the human terrain, and then as you look at each of those domains as you go around through there, it's all about identifying what the baseline is, and then being able to determine what the anomaly is. Okay, creating and then creating standoff to where you can get to the left of the bang. Then that's what we're talking about, being able to get to the left of the bang to where, we're creating that overmatch and we're better, enabling those squads to be able to perform the missions out there. And then then it helps them decide what they need to do. Do they need to continue to develop for more information? Do they need to, back off? Do they need to capture? Do they need to kill? So there's a lot of things that go on. And really, it's less cultural. It's about... If you can sit there and you can talk to an individual, you come up on a group of people, or you're looking at a group of people through a set of binoculars, and being able to determine who the leader is in that group, being able to determine, if you're talking to them, by their facial characteristics and the things they're doing, being able to determine if they're lying, okay, and that's pretty significant. We did an experiment in Camp Atterbury last month, Bold Quest 11. We had a squad. We had some representatives out there from the Maneuver Center, and we had a squad with a platoon sergeant from the 1st Armored Division. And they received this training, right, the ASAT training out there, and then they were put through scenarios, and then they were collecting that data to determine what the measures of effectiveness were. Well, we went out there and we talked to them, and I had the platoon sergeant that the 1st Armored Division sent out there had just left Fort Benning in the last year, and he said he would give up a week's worth of marksmanship training in AUSA, infantry AUSA, to be able to put this training into it. And then the squad leader that they sent out there said he would take leave and pay for the course himself if he could receive this training. And what we're going to do over the next 12 months is we're running a pilot at the Maneuver Center, and we're going to incorporate the ASAT training into the non-commissioned officers courses, the Maneuver Captain's Career course, the Reconnaissance Surveillance Leaders course, the Army Reconnaissance course, and the Sniper course, and a couple others, so we can start implementing this and see what the data is that we get back on it. Okay, if you'll go back to the primary slide, the human dimension. Okay, and then, with all this, comprehensive soldier fitness is going to be key, because we have to ensure that our soldiers are physically and mentally resilient. And one of the things that we've done at Fort Benning is we've taken, some of you have heard of the Army Center for Enhanced Performance, which is, started up at West Point and still run at West Point. We pulled that down to spin out of that down to Fort Benning. It's the Comprehensive Soldier Fitness Performance Resilience Enhancement Program. And we have a staff, the Lieutenant Colonel Barbello that came down from West Point, and then we're building the staff up there. And really what it is about leveraging the emerging cognitive enhancements, okay, to get at the human dimension. Look at goal setting, energy management, coaching, focus, and it's a way to look at, not only from a receive standpoint, but from a transmission standpoint, from the facilitator or the instructor and the student. And we had one company out on Sand Hill, an infantry OSIT company, that, and when we had two of them. We had one of them, they started this, the company commander and the battalion commander implemented this into that company. And what they originally were trying to do was increase the confidence of the soldiers. And as they conducted a training with the drill sergeants and with the trainees, what they found was, if you go to, and see my slides, these slides, if you go to the backup slide number, there we go. That one right there, okay. You got that ASAT going on, okay. But if you look at this slide right here, they were trying to increase the confidence of the soldiers that were out there. And as they went into it, you see the increase in the APFT. Okay, on the column on the far left is the historic average for 245 for a infantry AUSA company. And then as you look at the first time they did it, it increased to a 256. Okay, and then the second iteration, you go to the second one, it increased to a 257, and then they did it with another company. Okay, the same thing. They had it increased to a 262, and they was able to do that with the qualification scores. They increased the number of experts within the company, and then what the realized benefit that they received was the reduction in the failure to train. So you look at the bar for the attrition. You'd have the historical average was 20 that would fail to train, that would be released from training and sent back home. And then, as you see, with each iteration, the decreases that we had within both of those companies. So, and you get comments from the drill sergeants and the company commanders and everything about the difference that they've seen, because you're looking at it's the learner centric, but you have the drill sergeants taking a little bit different mindset to how they're giving their instruction to the soldiers. Okay, go back to the primary slide. Another example of the CSF prep that we've done is we've incorporated that training into the jump master course, the U.S. Army jump master course. Historically, the average for the pass rate for jump master school is 58%. The last 5 classes that we've implemented the CSF prep training with the cadre and with the students, we've been able to achieve a 78% graduation rate. So that's pretty significant when you look at the historical average. That's that many more jump masters, okay, that you can get back to the airborne units. Now those are 2 examples, but Colonel Barbello and his team are going around to all the programs of instruction, the schools that we have at Fort Benning, and each of the commands are working with him to incorporate this training into the courses that we have there. So really, when you look at it, we got to be able to develop our non-commissioned officers through through enhanced training and immersive training experiences, okay, to be able to deal with the situations, known and unknown, on the environments that they're operating in on today and in tomorrow, and then be able to create that trust, okay, with their leaders. And that's really getting at mission command. Okay, next slide. Okay, really, in all this slide, when you look at this slide right here, we talk about the training and leader development for maneuver non-commissioned officer. And what we tried to lay out with this slide is up on the green, okay, you have really, that's the institutional responsibilities. The amber that you see there is the self-development domain, and then the blue down on the bottom is the what's going to take place back in the units, the unit's responsibility. And then what we've tried to do is depict, okay, we got to ensure that the non-commissioned officers are receiving the training, okay, at the right time in their career, along their entire career, not just at specific time, dots along the map, to ensure that they're receiving the right amount of training, okay, the right type of training, to better prepare them for the positions that they're going to assume and be able to do the missions with all the responsibilities that we've asked of them. So if you're going to be a team leader, those things that happen once you graduate your initial military training, AUSA, get to your unit, and they're going to you learn how to be that team member. You learn how to be a team leader, and then you have to look at what goes on in each domain. One of the things that we got to do is kind of take a holistic review of each of those domains. Okay, like we got to determine what they must know, what they must be able to do, and what attributes that we want them to be able to demonstrate. And as we look at this holistic approach to these domains, we can need to start pulling. Okay, well, this really don't make any sense to be doing, going on in the self-development domain. We need to put that back in the unit responsibility. Well, we need to take this and put it up in the back in the schoolhouse. Because as we know, their time at the institution, the green box up there, is really finite. So most of your learning, most of your development takes place down in the blue area. Okay, I know I learned how to be a squad leader because my first sergeant taught me how to, was training me. My platoon sergeant, first sergeant, was teaching me how to be a squad leader. Kind of that same methodology right there. Then as we do this down in the blue box, we got to make for the units, we can't make it too hard. We have to make sure that this is exportable and it's not just something else that we're stuffing in a rucksack. Okay, we gotta be able to enhance, look at how we can enhance what you are already doing, what the units are already doing to develop, train, and develop. Okay, their formations, their soldiers, their leaders, and then as we do that, we have to ensure that there's it's gated. Okay, and it's tied. And we have to have measures of effectiveness, and you have to have assessments along the way to ensure that, hey, you're performing exactly where you need to be performing, and you're doing those things that you need to do. It's kind of, we have to get out of the, everybody gets a trophy mentality, because we all know that not everybody has what it takes to perform at certain levels, and we have to be able to counsel and develop and do those things along the way. And then between the WLC, which is training for sergeants or team leaders, and the Advanced Leader Course, which is for staff sergeants and future platoon sergeants, we want to get them through those career-enhancing schools, Ranger School, Reconnaissance, Surveillance Leaders Course, those type of small unit leader courses that are going to further develop those skills that we're seeking of our leaders today. Okay, next slide. And then in all of this, and Dr. Blake is going to talk more about the virtual immersive trainers that we have, is being able to link virtual to live. And, I say this every time, but I never thought last year that I would be briefing, advocating avatars for soldiers. But it's pretty powerful. When you think, most of our soldiers, and General Brown said earlier, we kind of take soldiers out of the network, to a certain degree. My son, all of us have kids that play games. We got soldiers that play games. When they get on there to create an avatar, they want their avatar to be a superhero. Okay, but in real life, the individual may not be that superhero. So as we look at this avatar, we look at issuing it to the soldier, and it's there's still some work that's got to be done on it. We issue it to the soldier, okay, when they graduate their initial military training. Okay, and really it's kind of like their digital leaders book that goes with them, and it's tied to their physical performance and their psychological and leadership styles. And that's a stretch on the second one, but there is initiatives out there to be able to get at that. But when you look at you're looking at it as a digital leaders book, it's tied to the digital training management system and your Army career tracker. As you conduct a PT test, as you conduct your weapons qualification, as you complete a specific course that further develops you, okay, all that stuff goes in there. And as you build your personal strength, you're building the strength of your avatar. So if you can shoot expert in real life, okay, your avatar will be an expert. If you score a 300 on your PT test, you're so will your avatar. Excuse me. But if you're overweight, okay, and you can't pass the PT test, and all those things, that's what your avatar will be. And so you'll be the slow link inside of that virtual scenario. So as you look at leaders counseling their soldiers, if you want to improve your avatar, you got to be able to improve yourself. So that's kind of I was skeptical. Okay, at first, because as General Brown said, we haven't, the dismount of light infantry, my career, we haven't had a virtual trainer for the light infantry. But as you look at that, it's pretty powerful. As you look at how the medium that we need to get at the soldiers today, what they do, the things that they do, and how they interact with each other, and how they communicate, and kind of how they aspire to get to the next level. We pull that into that, okay, and then we got a pretty powerful tool for conducting, professional growth and guidance. And, excuse me. And as I said earlier, as we continue this process, we're looking at 360-degree leaders assessments, where you do an evaluation. You get an evaluation from your peers, from your subordinates, and your superiors. And if you have, if you're weak in an area, say your negotiation skills. Okay, that is tied to that avatar as well. So as you work on improving those traits, okay, in real life, you're going to work on improving those on the avatar as well, sir.
Thanks, Sergeant Major. I think the days of anybody remembers being a puckster, the days of the puckster are long gone. When you're moving an icon in a simulation and you're not getting any training value from it, really it's putting the individual value in simulation and multi-echelon training that can be done in simulation as well. And I know Dr. Blake will touch on that. Next slide. When you look at, got to have the line chart, I just wanted to show you about 80 organizations involved in this Integrated Capabilities Development Team that will go up through TRADOC Commander and go to the Chief of Staff of the Army, and I'll show you how that will impact funding. We really appreciate, I see Lieutenant General Mulholland in the audience, and sir, thanks. We have the Special Operations Forces involved, and that's critical because in some of these cases we'll have some folks who say, yeah, we can't do that. And we have folks, 75th Ranger Regiment and the Special Operations community will say, hey, we're doing that every day, which is very, very important to understand what's possible and not necessarily limit yourself. And as well, JIADO was involved, and as I mentioned earlier, the Marines. So about 80 different organizations that meet, but that's kind of tough to handle, so we broke it down into fire teams, like a squad is broken down. Go to the next chart. And when in those fire teams, the fire teams are on leadership, they're on training, material development, measures of effectiveness. And this is really what has developed that really is, again, the absolutely new approach. We always looked in the past at just this box over here, materiel. And, of course, materiel is critical, but there are other aspects. And so when you look at training and leader development and what are the gaps up above, in this case, the squad capability gaps, and then look across those domains, because what happens is there might be a training or a leader development solution. There might be, you don't need a new widget. You might need a new widget, but if you don't compare them against each other and look at it, you won't know. And then you look at, here is a funnel, and you'll notice the unit patches on that. And that's where, again, we have involvement with recent squad leaders that have returned from the fight, successful squad leaders from just about every division except a couple that are deployed. We didn't bother, again, from our partners, both the Marine Corps and the Special Operations Command. Also, experimental forces out at Bliss and at Benning, CTCs, incorporating those folks because they see a whole lot. And so, that's kind of the sounding board every step of the way. Again, even a couple of people on the panel have been squad leaders, but it's been a while. So get those folks recently returned from the fight. Then you put them through this filter of, again, measures of effectiveness on the formation. On the formation, the measures of effectiveness. And again, you had to do a rigorous study of what the gaps were, and that leads to your priority. And again, it may be that increasing NCO education, WLC from 17 to 28 days gets funding priority over a new M4 carbine. Or a simulation gets priority over a new piece of equipment. It may not be, but that will lead to the prioritization across those areas. And again, that will impact the POM. With very minimal impact on 13 to 17 POM, a lot of measures of effectiveness to get after, but we look at a significant impact 14 to 18 as we get the results. And we're using labs. TRAC is helping us, Army Research Institute, all around the Army. And we're leveraging existing experiments. We're not creating experiments for this. There's plenty of them out there from the NIE out at Bliss, network integration, to the Army Warfighter experiment that's going on at Benning and many others. Sergeant Major mentioned Bold Quest as well. So it gets to prioritize funding across .mil PF that will lead to overmatch at the squad. Is it going to occur tomorrow? No. Will we have some things that will happen soon? Yes. But this is a process we have to go through until we get to overmatch. I'd like to go to Dr. Blake now and let him present, and then we'll open up for questions after we get a presentation from our Marine rep as well.
Well, I'm proud to be part of the team, and I'm proud to be here today. A lot of remarkable statements being made. It makes me wonder about a few things, like being part of the team. I don't think training has changed very much since I was in 11 Bravo in 1968, but we have provided some tools, and I'll talk about those in a few minutes. The idea here that it's all about trust, because can you imagine your avatar and you're looking at your fellow teammates? What are they thinking? And do they trust them? You can see there are a lot of avenues you're going to go down there for positive and negative exploration. What's interesting for us is we're on the leading edge of providing tools for simulation. I'm going to talk just about a couple of them that will help lead to an immersive environment. So we're not starting from scratch. We want to look at the squad, and we want to see what we can do with the squad. And we want to see if we can trade off things like material solution for training. Now, that's a novel approach, so I'm really happy to be part of the team for that. So this is one that we have that's new. It's the dismounted soldier training system. We're going to start fielding this thing shortly. We have 2 sites initially. But the idea is you take a 9-man squad and you can train this squad in an immersive environment by using helmet-mounted displays, HUD displays. They can maneuver around in a little 10-by-10 box, but they can see their buddies, and the buddies can see them. And so they can get an assessment of their own behavior when they're working this way. So they can build trust and confidence with their teammates. And I think we have a few of these in the conference here, so if you all might want to go around, take a look at them, try them on. This is part of the CCTT program. It's a dismounted soldier. It complements what we're doing, but this will let us to get at 9 men, 9 people. What can you do with the 9 people? Next. Everyone's a rifleman, so if you're really going to have trust in your buddy, you better hope your buddy can shoot straight. So this is a way of making sure you can shoot straight. I'm sure most of the infantry folks in the room are familiar with this, but there are several suites that are out there, a number of weapons that are replicated that are out there. The good news for the system when it's set out there is it does both individual, teach you how to shoot your weapon, lets you work as a team for collective training, and it lets you do judgmental use of force, which we see so much of downrange, should I shoot or not shoot. And then you have an assessment. Of course, all this is wrapped into an after-action review where somebody can sit there and assess, make sure you're doing it right. So we're going to train correctly and not train improperly. Next. This is the footprint. There are 861 systems that are funded, and 839 of them are already out there in the field. So I'm sure you've run across them at some point in time. But these fixed sites make it very difficult for folks that are in the outreaches of the country to try and get their training done. So we've actually built a couple mobile sites, mobile teams. Would you go to the next slide, please? So we have a mobile one, and it's here in the MCOE booth. So you can go down and take a look at it. It's a 5-lane system where you can shoot. Does everything that the fixed site system does, except you can drive it somewhere and set it up in very little time. So people can guard and reserve or an outreach can have an opportunity to train as well. Next slide. And then games for training. I mean, nothing's more powerful today than games because the younger folks are used to that interface and how to work with it. We have a program of record. It's called Games for Training. One of the items in there is VBS2. I'm sure many of you have used it. I think of it as a right seat ride for soldiers as opposed to a right seat ride for commanders, because you can take this tool and you can replicate whatever goes on downrange, and you can let the unit that's going to fall in on it actually go down, see the same thing that they saw. Very powerful tool, widely fielded. We're going to have a follow-on procurement of this, I guess, in 13. And this is being used by the other services. It's also being used by other nations. So the VBS2 really has a good footprint when you want to talk about coalition or get at exactly what the right mix is. So I'm going to stop there and take questions. I know that's what we want to get at. So I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Okay, Chris, go ahead. Sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Lieutenant Colonel Chris Woodburn, as General Brown said, from down at Quantico in the Requirements Branch. Sir, thank you very much for the opportunity to take part in this panel. Next slide, please. What I just wanted to do this afternoon is just give you a quick overview of the Marine Corps effort geared towards the squad. The verbiage you see up here is based on or is out of our initial capabilities document from 2007 entitled Marine Expeditionary Rifle Squad. We feel that headline best captures what our purpose and intent for the squad is. I would draw your attention to the second bullet up there because I think that best captures our concerns for the Marine Corps with the last 3 words there, from the sea. Not only forcible entry operations from the sea, but all operations across the Romo from the sea. If you have heard or have read anything the Commandant has been stating recently, he's really emphasizing getting back to our expeditionary roots and getting back to our partnership with the Navy, because after post-OEF, that's where we'll be operating from once again. The Muse will have primacy, we'll be aboard ship, and we'll be doing what we do best with our Navy brethren coming from the sea. So we want to continue that emphasis. In terms of attributes, you'll see a lot of the same verbiage you've heard mentioned here this afternoon already. We want to improve lethality, command and control, identification of targets. Mobility is huge. Talk to just about any service from around the world today that employs infantrymen, light infantry. They'll tell you that the soldier's load is a primary concern. So overall, provide greater improvement to the squad's ability to conduct operations regardless of type and regardless of environment. Next slide, please. What I wanted to do here was just give you a quick overview of some of our efforts across .MLPF. Unlike what the Army's approach, which is kind of starting at the analysis of .MLPF and looking at the various efforts that will be needed, we already have several ongoing. So right now we are getting our arms around all of the different efforts geared towards the squad across the Marine Corps. We're going to align those and then look at any potential gaps we might have. But in doctrine, we're in the process of revising our squad doctrine. All of our infantry doctrine is woefully out of date. Most of it has a 1970s date attached to it. We finally are on the cusp of getting our new rifle company doctrine signed. It has a new mission within it, and we chose that as the breaching point. Once that new doctrine is signed, we'll revise the squad, platoon, battalion, regiment, et cetera, based on that company-level breaching point. We don't intend on making any changes to our organization of the squad. 13-man rifle squad's been in existence in the Marine Corps since World War II. We've examined that several times as the squad size for the Army and other services around the world have changed. But as a light infantry force, 13-man squad works for us. That's where we're going to stay. On the training side, you heard the immersive training piece. Training and Education Command is looking at the same for our squads, for our infantrymen. Squad immersive training environment. General Mattis, who most of y'all probably know of or have heard of, is a huge proponent of this, both when he was within the Marine Corps and now as a combatant commander. His point being that we have all these great simulators for pilots. We need them for infantrymen. So squad immersive training environment. You heard about the Combat Hunter program. There are a lot of other training initiatives out there as well to improve our training continuum for the squad going on within the Marine Corps. On the materiel side, we're going to move forward. We're going to take a hard look at the ICD we have, basically validate the capabilities-based analysis we did for it, refresh it as necessary, and part of that effort will be to develop a MERS roadmap, which will, like I mentioned earlier, identify and align all of our efforts across .MLPF so we can make sure we don't have any gaps, and also so we can better converse with our Army brothers and sisters about what efforts we have and where we can better align what we're doing and learn from each other's efforts. You see also, up there also the current gaps that we have identified in our ICD. Again, many of those the same that the Squad Foundation of the Decisive Force is talking to as well. Leadership side, we're looking to improve our squad leader training continuum, which includes the fire team leaders, and that ties in with our personnel effort, which is looking to change or modify the squad leader assignment policy so we get a squad leader who is in his second term. He has more experience and more education than what we're getting right now, which in many cases is a first-term corporal who's filling that billet because sergeants are going off to B billets, and we just don't have the sergeant population we need to fill the TO billet with a sergeant. So Commandant of the Marine Corps, Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, very much on board with that. They have the Manpower and Reserve Affairs organization basically have their attention to make these changes so, again, we get a more experienced sergeant out there. Finally, for facilities, the infantry immersion trainer, we have one right now at Camp Pendleton. Some of you heard it referred to as the tomato patch. It's an old tomato manufacturing warehouse. Since we can't ever afford to build our own facilities, we just commandeered it and stuck an immersion trainer in there. Been through it myself when it was geared towards the Iraq OIF. Very well done. It's a combination of live actors, simulation, as well as live demo and paintball or simunitions with the weapons. So you get a very realistic experience when you go in there. It's now geared towards OEF, and it's a good scene setter for the Marines to go through a Camp Pendleton prior to them going out to Enhanced Mojave Viper at 29 Palms, which is basically their graduation exercise before they head over on deployment.